That was my kid brother broke his arm. You did a good job, Doc, even if you was drunk.
Thank you, sir. Professional compliments are always pleasing.
Yes, sir.
What happened to that boy whose arm I fixed?
He was murdered.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Let's Take 5, the podcast where we take a cinema legend and take 5 of their films to highlight their excellence and range. My name is Austin Luger.
My name's Eric Martindale.
This is our 4th film in our John Ford 5. Our previous ones were Stagecoach, The Grapes of Wrath, and My Darling Clementine. We'll be back next week with a review of The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, but today we're covering maybe, at least in 2018, his most critically acclaimed film, The Searchers.
I agree with that.
It is a 1956 film that was made in the glorious Monument Valley, Utah. It is the story of a man who is back from the Civil War, unhappy that his side lost, and goes off on a multiple-year search for a young girl, his niece, who was taken by an Indian tribe. He is joined by this guy,
His goofy nephew.
His nephew, played by Jeffrey Hunter, and it is this long, difficult search for tracking down this man named Scar and trying to find Lil Debbie. And it is something.
Yeah, this film's kind of nuts. So it opens and closes with 2 of the most iconic shots in the history of film. Mm-hmm. Both of them are beautiful. You have the opening up onto Monument Valley, and then you have the shutting the door on Monument Valley. We'll get to that. You have John Wayne playing the racist archetype of the Civil War era, in the Western era, quite frankly, hates Indians. It's not your run-of-the-mill racism that you get in a lot of Western films. This guy is obtusely racist.
Yeah, he's a fan of Yankees, any Indian group.
Not even a hint of, because his nephew has some
1/8 Cherokee,
and that's not good. He doesn't like that.
No.
John Wayne is a very, very dangerous character in this film, but also the hero of this film. So that's sort of the cool, interesting dilemma you kind of have in the film when you're rooting for him, but also you're continually reminded, and the movie does it in very, very violent ways, show you this man is not a hero. Mm-hmm. And maybe this isn't the place for a hero.
And that's something that's immediately kind of recognized, only because, his dialogue is so prickly, he's so prickly, and he's just a uncomfortably, bad person, mm-hmm. who's still, portrayed as, the guy with the white hat and kind of thing. But about halfway through the film, as you're kind of going through years and seasons of the search, and the nephew is just such a dumb shit. Yeah. And someone finally asks him, why are you here? Why do you think that you're being helpful at all mm-hmm. in any of this? And he says a great answer, which is, I'm really worried that he's going to get Debbie killed because he's so angry at them that he will charge in and get her killed.
Yeah, I feel like that part of the relationship is kind of interesting and really works, and I wish that's what the movie cared about. But on that other point, I was leading in with these sort of things in the film, and then this one is just this horrible. It's not side plot. It's part of the main plot. This love story that is in the film between the nephew and the girl back home, which gets a good 30, 40 minutes of play in this film, and it's some of the worst comedy ever. It's like stage farcical, goofy, it's like Noises Off. It's goofy. And it's filmed, so it's even worse. And it's on the backdrop of a very, very serious Western about a character who's a psychotic racist. And it doesn't, I don't know how to square it, because you have, to me, 50% great character story, great, movie, and then you have, other 50% really offbeat, goofy shit.
Yeah, this movie has a lot of different things going on. I think that's why, to me, I went into this 5 thinking it's my number 1. It has gone down a little bit just because it is so many different things going on. Its heights are really high, mm-hmm. but I didn't mind the whole story as much. I loved her performance. I actually really liked her. She's also in next week's film in a smaller role, but I just enjoy how brazen she is the whole movie.
When you say she, who are you talking about?
Vera Miles.
Okay.
And I think there's one scene that is just so confusing that I laughed the entire time of the guy's taking a bath and she comes in He's like, hey, some privacy here. They start like yelling at him about like feminism, about how women have washed men's clothes for years and sometimes even washed them. I can see whatever I want. And then she pretends to leave. He goes, I'm confused. Kind of puts his hands back down. Then she pours hot water on him. Like, all he wanted to do was not show his dick. And she yells at him for this.
No, I think some of that stuff is funny. I think the problem that I have with it mainly is that the nephew is probably, I think the character's probably 17 or 18. Mm-hmm. But all his dialogues in the scene with her is written like a 12-year-old. Mm-hmm. And he acts like a 12-year-old.
Oh, it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. It's so weird. And then when he has to challenge Ethan, the John Wayne's character, when he has to challenge him, he grows up. Mm-hmm. But then he regresses every time he's not in those scenes. It's really weird. I mean, I know there's a lot of irons in the fire in this film, and to the fact that it feels like it's actually a longer movie than what it is when it's right at 2 hours, but I think there's just so much going on. There's a lot going on in this film, and when it hits, and I mean it really hits. I'm talking greatest movie ever maybe hits. But when it misses pretty badly.
It's just such a weird thing to kind of keep seeing throughout the movie. The one part that I did like of the romance subplot, which is still a complete mess of a sequence, is, the wedding sequence, right?
The wedding sequence is the best part.
Of the subplot or the movie?
Oh, no. Of the subplot.
Like,
not of the movie.
This is what I'm doubling down on. No, it is such... I like it because I think it was one of the best examples of just understanding how long they've been on this journey. Like, you really felt the passage of time.
Years
and years. And it is actually, the whole reading the letter sequence, which takes a long montage of scenes. When she says that this is the only letter I've received from you in 5 years, why would I have waited? I didn't even know that you loved me. You just kind of really get just how many days of them just like on their horses, making a fire, back on their horses, accomplishing nothing. It is just a never-ending failure. And just
two people that don't really like each other either.
And barely do by the end.
Yeah. Well, the end is... Nobody likes him.
No.
He's a weird, scary guy.
Yeah. Who chose not to be there for the family that was there, mm-hmm. and just was driven on racism as mm-hmm. not heroics.
Yeah, I gotta say, so like there's the scene where you first really get to see the racism come to the forefront. We're obviously going to talk about this a lot, is because it's there to be talked about. Well, first of all, he sees his nephew, and he gives him a look like, you're an Indian, I don't like you. But it's when they dig up the dead Indian who's in the ground, they have a fresh grave, they pull the Indian out of the ground, and he pulls out his gun, shoots both of the Indian's eyes out, and says that way he'll be blind in his afterlife. So not only I don't believe his afterlife, but I'm literally desecrating this corpse, so if some Indian should go by, they could be horrified by this thought and this image, and this would be the last thing that this person would want. This Indian's dead. He's mm-hmm. dead. And he pulls out the gun and shoots both his eyes out, and it's like, okay, this is a very, very different John Wayne, mm-hmm. right? And I imagine going to the theater in 1954 or 1955, whenever the film came out, going to the theater and seeing John Wayne behave like this for the first time was mm-hmm. probably even more frightening.
Sure.
Because you're not used to that. You're not used to seeing John Wayne sort of that way. So again, it's this weird sort of... And not to a point where he doesn't necessarily realize what he's doing is wrong. Mm-hmm. That's what makes it so scary, is he knows it. Mm-hmm. And he does it anyway. For real or imagined insults against people that had nothing to do with him. And that's what makes him a really freaky guy.
There's something, especially in kind of modern culture, there was really kind of a large rise of the anti-hero, mm-hmm. right? We were all watching characters like Walter White, Don Draper and such on TV, and, other kind of violent heroes. There's something that has that feel in this movie where you go, okay, yes, he's this, but look, he definitely knew how to handle this. He keeps correcting the Reverend. He knows the West. He's still an all-American cowboy, but he's just so much grosser that actually, like, the more he speaks, the more you go, yes, he is good at being a cowboy. He's bad at being a person that I have any real sympathy for. And the movie, I think, never perfectly, but almost perfectly, like, always recognizes that. Like, it puts him in a hero's light that makes you feel gross about it. And especially, like, watching was watching this earlier today, and I was watching with Sarah. I've never seen it before. And there's a moment when you have the woman who had lost her mind. Not Debbie, a different woman they found. And John Wayne just kind of like spits at her and says, she's not even white, really.
Mm-hmm.
And
she's not white anymore.
Yeah, and such a gross, horrible thing. And Sarah said, like, okay, is that the movie being racist, or is it him being racist? Because, like, is it just, like, racist for cruelty's sake? I did hint, like, it's actually setting up the ending for this. It is recognizing just, like, it's just a scene, it's just cruel. Mm-hmm. And to watch John Wayne as the smart cowboy of, like, best way to, like, follow someone, leave trails, and live in the West. Yeah, it was odd.
And you feel a dilemma. You feel the dilemma, too, because at the beginning, and I think this is done purposely as well, is the whole reason this quest is even happening is because Scar and the Indians he fights with murder an entire family and kidnap a child at the beginning of the film. Now, this isn't to say anything about what happened to the Indians or the appropriation of their land and all that. That's putting too kind of a word on it. I understand that, but that is the experience that we see and we watch in this film. So we see John Wayne, the character of Ethan's whole worldview, compressed into this single goal of killing as many Indians as I can on the quest to capture this or recapture this young girl, rescue this young girl. And it's kind of, and that's why he works as the anti-hero. Because we have the reason. We have the reason for the quest, right? What the person is horrible. We can sit back and look at that. And the movie, he is intentionally so. But we are stuck as an audience member watching this and saying, at the end, surely the ends will justify the means, because the Natalie Wood character, played by another actor earlier in the film, she's going to be rescued by Ethan. So that's why it's kind of like letting a dog off the leash, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's what it feels like. You need this tool to complete this mission. And it's and I think that's why it works, but also that's where it kind of gets crazy, because now you've taken this guy who loves doing this thing and you're putting him on the exact quest you wouldn't want someone with that personality being able to do it. Mm-hmm. Like, now his racism can run rampant. Right. Now we're using it as a device, as a tool, as I mentioned earlier, and that's why the movie's like really, really, really good, because that is a plot and a story that I don't think people were used to at this time, and not one that's really the needle's been threaded. Mm-hmm. That's why we say with Walter White in Breaking Bad, it's okay because he's doing it for his family. At least that's what we think he's doing it for. We never mind the fact that he's selling meth.
It actually is the thing, because he's doing it for his family.
Exactly. Well, exactly. Yeah, so never mind that he's doing something. Never mind that he's a crazy racist. Right. And that's the whole point, and that's the whole dilemma, and that's awesome. Like, that's really, really, really good. I just think it has a really goofy love story in it.
The weirdest. Well, we'll get to that in a second. But something that I also thought was an immediate thing where the film was kind of showing who Ethan's true colors were is when, like, the very beginning, they are, asking him to be, like, quickly deputized, like, okay, we're going to go do this. And he refuses it, because I've already done one oath, and those are the Confederate States of America. Like, oh, buddy. Oh, God.
We're doubling down. We're tripling down.
Really, really not. Like, it's just across the board terrible. And it is interesting, and we see this in many other actors as well, John Wayne using his charisma for evil purposes, essentially.
That's great.
Yeah.
That always works.
Yeah, it is so cool to see him. He's not buckling down. He's not, cheating in a way of, like, I'm going to say this terrible thing, but now I'm going to hug a child, I'm going to cry and recognize I'm a good person. No, he really commits to this grizzled, terrible being who has to be the one driving the film with charisma, and they didn't let him be that funny. He has a couple, like, one-liner reply back, but they're still with his, like, aura of...
That'll be the day.
That'll be the day. Which he says a lot, and Probably one too many times, I feel. It was pretty cool a couple times.
It was a 5-year journey, though.
That's true. He said it 5 times in 5 years.
Yeah, so it's not that bad. So, and also through that, I mean, he gets even really more frightening at the end whenever his first reaction when they finally actually catch up to the girl to rescue her is to kill her. Because she's...
In his mind, like, not white anymore.
Not white anymore. She's one of them now. And instead of... What's really, really creepy about that to me is that, and I've said that word too many times, but that his reaction isn't then just to abandon the quest. Mm-hmm. It's to murder her.
Yeah.
Like, well, you could have just left her.
Yeah.
If you weren't going to... No, he's going to kill her because to him, type of euthanasia.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really messed up. To the end of the film, when they finally do catch up her for the second time, and Scar's dead at this point, you don't know if he's going to kill her or not. The whole tension at the end of the film is when he's chasing her down, we're worried he's going to catch up to her and murder her. Mm-hmm. That's really messed up.
And you have this large sequence which reminded me of a bit of the end of Stagecoach. You have this amazing, like 20 horses on screen, all kind of going forward, going through this pretty much abandoned town where they've caught up to the tribe. And because of John Wayne's character's just aura, it wasn't the cavalry's coming in and save the day. It actually does feel like the tanks are coming in. Like it is a really threatening thing. And I mean, the depiction of the tribe they're going after and Scar is very just like one note.
Well, they're
not on screen.
They're not on screen. Scar and Scar is not a yes, you're right. He's not presented in a nuanced way, but there's nothing to indicate that Scar is a good person either.
No. Yeah.
I mean, there are good Indians in the film that are bad things are done to them, and this group we're led to believe is not that. I mean, Scar is bad. Again, it's not very nuanced, but we do see him take scalps in the film, or it actually shows that.
And then at the end, Ethan scalps him.
And then at the end, Ethan scalps him right before going to rescue the girl, and that's why it makes it even more scary, because it feels like the waters have been chummed. Mm-hmm. There's blood in the air. He's like a great white shark, and he's got a bloodlust. Because amongst all the killing that's happening in the camp at the time, all the cowboys rode in, they're shooting the Indians, and it looks like it's going to be a rout. He takes the time to hop off his horse, ignore the battle, go into the tent, and scalp Scar. And this really creepy scene where he pulls up his head dead and pulls out a knife. And again, this is the hero of our film. And then it cuts away because they can't show it.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I felt as the audience were going like, oh, I don't want to see this.
Yeah. You know, the implication, of course, the implication is always better than actually showing it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, John Ford, Jesus Christ. Like, every few minutes of this movie, I'm like, oh, it's the best shot of all time. It's the most beautiful looking film I've ever seen. The color, the epic scope of Monument Valley, not only in terms of its wide, expansive shots, but also like that one point when they're in a canyon, it's like the thinnest part of a valley, and it just shows you how tall it is, and the way it does the winter sequences with the horses in the snow. That. Oh my God. Everything, even like, these interior shots are so amazingly done. The dumb bathtub scene is really well shot.
Cowboys in the snow is just really cool to me. Mm-hmm. I just always love that image with the white landscape and the snow, like hitting the hats and everything, the contrast. I think that's really cool. I think I can definitively say that while I think the script is fine, I do think this was a film that was made much better by John Ford and John Wayne. Mm-hmm. Like their ability made this a much better story. I don't know.
And they were the ones to tell it, right?
Right.
At this point now, they have been like the ones making these Westerns. Honestly, these are two men who defined a genre in Hollywood, right? That it is like, when you think of an American Western from this time, you're thinking of imagery from John Ford and John Wayne movies, either separate or together. And
Yeah, absolutely. Then that's a good point. You're right. Either separate or together, you're thinking about it.
And this kind of is his Unforgiven, right? Where it's really kind of looking at the ugliness of the thing that you popularized. And
being like rather candid, I gotta say, and I mean, I'd say that the only thing where they might have given themselves the pass is that the Indians that they are chasing aren't nuanced. They're just as bloodthirsty as he is, or at least they're presented that way. But you do have other Indians in the film that aren't, and that is the dumbest part of the movie.
Okay, I have my answer for the dumbest joke in the movie.
When he kicks her?
Oh, yeah.
When he kicks her down the hill, like when the nephew... Okay, so he gets married on accident to a young Indian girl, and when she lays next to him, because she assumes that's what she's supposed to do as a wife, the joke is that he kicks her, and she rolls down a hill, and John Wayne laughs at it. It's like... kind of violent.
Yeah. But then John Wayne's character laughing at it should be a sign like, oh, that was bad.
Yeah, exactly. We shouldn't be laughing at that.
Well, he accidentally marries her because he just didn't know how to trade properly. That, they didn't know the language. He was trying to, like, barter goods and whatnot. And the dumbest joke in the movie is that he tries to offer up his trade 2 blue ribbons for the biggest hog in this city. I was like, why have you been traveling with that? That's an insane thing that you've been having these blue ribbons in your bag for 3 years. But like, maybe this will work. Maybe I can get some beans out of this.
He picked it up on the road at some other point, man.
So you think he traded for it?
Yeah. maybe he took it off somebody. I don't know.
He gave up a blanket for those ribbons.
I would watch the modern television show of those two on that 5-year journey. But they would need to fix that character.
But the nephew. No, it reminded me of a TV couple of sorts. It reminded me of Locke and Boone from Lost.
Locke and Boone? I can see that. Yeah, very similar to that, too. Another character that's, like, immature, too, with the crafty old veteran. Of course, Locke is a representation of everything that's good about humanity.
True. So Locke is not evil, but he does know he's a lot of
It's named after John Locke.
I know. but at least Boone, is a character in Lost that is a dumb, immature guy. But unlike the guy in this movie, he is watchable.
Yeah.
Boone is someone that is dumb. He's a self-centered guy from, like, Los Angeles, now on a tropical island with monsters. But, like...
He tries in a tolerable way.
He tries and learns, and... Yeah, this guy was...
This guy sucked.
Yeah, he was so... That one scene where they're at the campfire, and, like... Ethan knows that the people are around, is not telling him and whatnot, but he's just so angry, like, and whiny, like... Don't put another log on the fire. It's hot enough already. Ugh. I'm like, then move away from the fire. Like, like, this has to be insufferable for Ethan, a character I'm barely sympathized with at all. But like, you have to ride with this guy all the time. You can't listen to podcasts. It's just this guy whining about how hot the fire is.
So how the movie ends is one of the cooler shots ever and one of the cooler endings ever, because it lets you know what you were talking about, that the movie is actually... The intent was to make him an evil, racist, scary guy, and we're not glorifying this. The movie is not racist. This character is, right? Because at the end of the film, when the daughter's finally brought back... Well, shut up the shop for me, Austin.
Well, it's this amazing parallel, and something that's been used many times and used in, like, every montage of great American cinema kind of thing. You see the camera's inside a house, but you really don't see anything else. You just have the camera next to the doorway, and just all shadow inside, in contrast to the most, like, beautiful colored Monument Valley white shots. So when the door opens in the beginning of the film, you're entering the West in a way like, oh my God, this is a Planet Earth documentary. And the movie ends, beautifully of, you have the people kind of coming home, and there's the door, and in a very almost like biblical kind of way, John Wayne knows he can't go in. This is not a home for him. This is not a world for him. And he just kind of stops and turns and kind of goes towards the West. There's no horse out there. There's like nothing he's walking towards, but this land is not for him.
And you have to feel that weight of 5 years of that journey, and then he's not even invited inside because
he's terrible.
He's a terrible person. No one wants to have him there, and it's to the point where it almost makes you feel like they didn't do it on purpose. They just forgot about him. They just didn't think about him. And his punishment is like he has to live with himself.
Yeah. He's backwards in a time that already is a bit backwards already, but there's no place for him. That everyone else is evolving and caring, and he's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And the door closes on
him. Then the door closes on him.
Yeah.
And it's of course, very reminiscent of all the famous door shuts in the history of cinema. The Godfather comes to mind, obviously, at the ending of The Godfather. But I like this better because this was like the whole point. It's like the whole point of the movie was going towards this moment where we got to leave this shit behind us. We got to leave it on the doorstep. And the door is shut. And there he is. And he's sad. He's lonely. He could have walked in. But even somewhere in him, in his heart of hearts, he knows that...
Well, there's nothing for him.
There's nothing for him.
He's fueled by hatred and rage. Mm-hmm. He's so uncomfortable at the beginning of the film before there is a plot. I mean, he picks up a niece and goes like, oh, you haven't aged at all. And then an older woman goes like, no, that's me. You're like, yes, I have aged 10 years since you bothered to come over here again.
Yeah.
Then there's the one nephew who's like, didn't even know the war's over. Like,
yeah.
The war ended years ago? Yeah. Why haven't you been here?
Yeah.
Like, he just...
Well, he shows up wearing the Confederate, like, outfit. Like, you know, and... yeah, it's... I you know what? It's like an hour of, like, maybe the best movie ever. And it's an hour of, like, stuff that I could have done without. I just could have done without it. I mean... And some of it, I think, is flat out bad. So it's this weird Jekyll and Hyde type of film for me. And I'm always, anytime I have this discussion about this film, which I feel like it's getting more frequently because I feel like the film's found a new popularity. At least, like you said, every Cinephiles montage includes the final shot or the first shot in this film, usually the final shot. And that's for a reason. Definitely, it's in that pantheon. But part of me wants to be like, have you guys watched the movie? Mm-hmm. It's got some weird stuff in it, man.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, still an incredible movie. I do think those parts have aged worse in the past few years because now that we're seeing such remarkable cinema, it does feel like Ford not willing to go as dark. Like, he didn't trust himself to do something that is just this bleak. They need to have the dumb scenes.
Which is weird, because maybe he thought it was bleak with just John Wayne. Because it's like, The Grapes of Wrath is just like pure misery.
True, but that is important cinema kind of thing. I don't know. And
I get what you mean.
Next week's movie, which I was going to discuss next week, that balanced out well. It actually is, it's not a super depressing movie like this or Grapes of Wrath, but it is something where he is more confident in the tone to, we're going to talk about a sad story, but it all fits together. But that'll be next week. Join us next week. We'll be discussing that film, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Until then, let us know what you think of The Searchers. Does everything hold up for you? Have you seen it before? We want to know your thoughts on The Searchers, and you can leave a comment at theartimmortal.com. Or there, check out some other podcasts, including The Immortals and Ad Absurdum. Check out those shows, because they're good ones. Special thanks to Adam Lord for his amazing music for this show. Where else can we find you, Eric?
Constant Aversions, my YouTube channel.
Nice.
We got a very special guest next week.
Ooh. Oh, wait. For this podcast. I bet you meant calling Constant Diversion.
Oh, no. Not on Constant Diversion.
Whoa, I didn't know about this.
No, this podcast has a very special guest.
I watched The Searchers and Liberty Valance back-to-back today, and boy, do I want to play Red Dead 2. So...
We'll have to tune up the trailer, because you can't play the game right now.
I know.
Right now, it's sad.
But... yeah, thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week. Until then, I'm Austin Licker.
I'm Eric Martindale.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
I found him. I found Lucy. They're camped about a half mile over. I was just swinging back, and I seen their smoke. I bellied up a ridge, and there they was, right below me.
Did you see Debbie?
No, but I saw Lucy all right. She was wearing that blue dress, and she
What you saw wasn't Lucy.
Oh, but it was, I tell you.
What you saw was a buck wearing Lucy's dress. I found Lucy back in the canyon. Wrapped her in my coat. Buried her with my own hands. Thought it best to keep it from you.
Oh. Did they... What was she...
What do you want me to do? Draw you a picture? Spell it out? Don't ever ask me. As long as you live, don't ever ask me more.
Hi, Brad. Hey, Brad. Brad, wait a minute! Brad!